So that doesn't resonate.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about the demographics, Craig, the aging population and all this, is that when, the baby boomers and that who were born in the 50s and stuff, they're going to get a sharp shock when they retire and they realise that the government and the banking system have already stolen all of their pensions and there'll be nothing to pay out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely happening in America. That's going to happen in America in a few years' time. And it's going to happen over here as well. Because there's not enough. If you look at the demographics of it all, I don't know what the birth rate was during the baby boom in like the 50s and 60s or whatever, but the birth rate today is an absolute disaster, right? It's like 1.5 and stuff in the West, Like when it's supposed to be like 2 or 2.1 just to keep a population stable in the long term.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it's probably natural, but you know what I mean? It's probably a natural response to a lot of the high birth rates during the earlier 20th century, right? But what's going to happen is we're going to reach a point where the people from the baby boom are going to retire, and that's going to happen in, depending on their age, it's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years, and they're going to find out that all those pensions that were in stock and stuff like that, that's where their pensions are, a lot of them. Not all of them, but some of them. And they're going to find out that there's nothing there, and the government damn well can't pay them out. All the safeguards, the safeguards, like they say, the government guarantees your savings and all this.
Yeah.
The banking system is based on fractional reserve, where the banks only keep about a 10th or a 12th, I think, in this country, of what's really in your account. And the reason the banks get away with it is because nobody ever tries to take their money out,
Yeah.
So
that's how hedge funds and investment banking works, is that they take from pensioners, from investors, from people, whoever, basically, will want to put money in or will put money in, and then they use that money and float around and make profits and losses and whatever, and right now they've been making a lot of losses.
But it doesn't work like that, Quick, does it? Because it's heads we win, tails you lose. Tails you lose your pension. Goodbye pension, it's gone.
Yep.
I mean, that's what's happened to the pensions. I mean, people are going to get a real reality check when they start to retire and the government can't pay them. Whatever. I mean, when this system's coming to a head, it can't carry on the way it is. I mean, the bailout, that's the last crutch that they're using to stand this economy up on. I mean, once the bailouts run out, and this is like, I don't know if you listen to Gerald Celente, what he says, but he says that the last bubble in this bubble economy is the debt bubble, right? And because the government's taken on debt to pay off banks' debt, basically.
Yeah.
All these fictional assets. And eventually, at some point, it's going to prove unsustainable, and we're going to see eventually, like what happened to Argentina with the collapse of the currency eventually, probably. But that's the kind of thing that's going to happen if they carry on. There's only two possible things that can happen. You can either stop the bailouts and experience the suffering, really. I mean, what's going to happen when they switch the bailouts off? At some point, and it has to happen eventually. And the longer they wait before they switch the bailouts off, the worse it's going to be when they do. You know what I mean? It's they're building a higher and higher pyramid of cards, the house of cards and all this. And the higher they build it, the bigger the fall's going to be when they finally run out of cards. It's going to be it's going to be an interesting time. That Chinese thing. May you live in interesting times, or something like that. I'm not sure what that's.
Well, they control what things are worth at the end of the day. What debt means and what things are worth. Like they gave toxic, prime mortgage debts AAA ratings and sold them to the banks and sold them to
the AAA rating. The AAA rating, that mark of reliable assets.
It's kind of like, I'll write you a check and it won't bounce. I promise, That's the kind of thing that's going on. That did go on. And when you base something on nothing, and then suddenly the person who you've duped looks behind the curtain,
Oh.
Looks behind, like nothing.
Oh, there was never anything there. I didn't realise. Oh. I've just given you, my entire livelihood, and never mind. Oh, well. Turns out I'm a slave. I never realised. Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what people are starting to realise, though. I mean, if it ever... That's why the government's so keen to keep a cap on this run on the banks. If there's ever a real run on the banks, people are going to figure out that the banks don't have any money to pay them with. You see, they just can't afford it, because if it ever happened that even 10% of people went to withdraw their savings from the banks could not pay it out. The only reserves they have, I do think the ratio in this country is actually even lower than in America. In America, it's 1/10, and I think in Britain it's 1/12. And if any more than 9 or 10% of people went to withdraw their savings, the banks would be bankrupt, because they don't really have all that money in the accounts. It's a total fraud.
Well, like I say, you don't realise how much of a slave you are until you start living, like an everyday life. Like myself, I'm a slave to a cash machine constantly. And I mean, if you think about it, if you just went to a cash machine and it didn't give you any money, there was nothing there.
Exactly.
Like you said, that's such a feasible thing. That can happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's just unprecedented, though. I mean, there's nothing like it in history that we've had these fiat currencies made out of paper and dreams. I don't know I don't know where it gets its value from. Really, just the government says it's got value, so it has value. But in the end, see, even during the Great Depression, right? There was gold, and a lot of people. I know that Roosevelt in America seized the gold, actually forced all the people in America to hand over their gold to the government, actually.
Yeah.
But now, they've already taken the gold in the 1930s. They've got nothing else to take. Gordon Brown sold off the gold as well. There's no hard assets left. The people have had everything taken from them at some point or another. I mean, hell, we lost the land in 1066, Craig. Yeah. And now we've lost the gold, the industry. I'm just thinking, what do we have? We have houses and TV and offices and call centres and I'm not really sure what else we have.
Recruitment agencies I read something. Was it 70% of our or 68% of our output is services?
Really? That much?
Yeah.
Oh.
The rest is manufacturing. I think that's the only real major.
Yeah.
And the rest is manufacturing, but 60% services. Financial services. The video games industry. They're all services.
The video games industry. That great British tradition, Craig.
I think that's about 2% of GDP or something like that.
Really?
But, yeah, it's like quite a few $100 billion or something. But yeah,
it's like the fall of Rome, Craig. I know when you read about that, and the people, the wealthy class. One of the reasons was they were so. I think they were probably poisoned by because they used lead pipes in Rome, didn't they, for the water, and it ended up poisoning people. But as well, the wealthy just didn't care about anything, and they just had parties all day. And eventually, of course, they realised that there's nobody beneath them supporting them anymore, and then there's the big collapse, the fall of Rome, and I just can't help but think that that's quite similar to what's been going on today.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
I've got to get going now.
That's all right, man. Oh.
I'll lecture a bit, so. Go on, so.